You were told to be honest with others, but no one told you how to be honest with yourself. And so you grew up building illusions, quiet ones, the kind you don't even recognize as lies, the kind that feel safe, that tell you you're good enough, smart enough, just misunderstood, the kind that convince you that the problem is always them, never you. But the truth? Most people aren't weak because they're incapable. They're weak because they are unwilling to destroy their own illusions. And that's why this isn't going to motivate you. It's going to dissect you, quietly, relentlessly, without permission. Because if you want to think like Machiavelli, if you want clarity that cuts through the noise, through society, through your own bullshit, you don't need motivation, you need surgery. So this is not inspiration. This is dissection. Let's kill this early. The need to see yourself as good is the root of half your suffering. Because the people who call themselves good are usually afraid of being disliked, addicted to approval, and relying on morality to avoid responsibility. You're not supposed to be good. You're supposed to be effective. And that means accepting your own selfishness, your vanity, your manipulation, your rage. Because suppressing your darkness doesn't make you noble. It makes you blind. Machiavelli didn't respect goodness. He respected clarity. And clarity says you are capable of betrayal, of violence, of deception. You just pretend you're not, because the truth would hurt your identity. But you cannot master power until you've looked yourself in the eye and said, I am not harmless. I am not soft. I am simply disciplined enough to control it. And if you can't say that, you're not good. You're just weak pretending to be good. You've been told you're special, talented, destined for something bigger. You've repeated it like a mantra. You wait for the world to notice. But here's the truth Machiavelli would give you. No one deserves anything. You get what you take, or you get nothing. Deserving is a story you tell yourself to feel better about staying in place. The job you didn't get. The person who didn't choose you. The attention you never received. You call it injustice. Machiavelli would call it reality. Because life does not respond to how you feel. It responds to how you move. Do not mistake internal potential for external value. Potential is meaningless. If it isn't leveraged, it doesn't exist. There are people dumber than you, lazier than you, colder than you, winning. Why? Because they don't wait for permission. They don't wait to be ready. They don't ask the world to acknowledge them. They force it. You want to stop suffering? Stop expecting. Start extracting. This is a trap disguised as hope. You think if you just keep being patient, keep explaining, keep proving yourself, eventually they'll understand your heart, your pain, your value. They won't. Because people aren't listening to you. They're listening to their idea of you. And that idea is built on their insecurity, their envy, their bias, and their limited perception. So no matter how many times you explain, they will bend your truth to protect their illusion. Machiavelli never asked to be understood. He expected to be misunderstood, and built power in the shadow of that. He didn't fix the narrative. He used it. So stop wasting time trying to be understood. Become undeniable instead. They may never see you clearly, but they will feel your presence, and they will adjust to it. You see people winning, and you call them lucky. You ignore their strategy, their ruthlessness, their calculated presence. You say, they had support. They were in the right place. They were born confident. Machiavelli would look at you and say, envy is the confession of inferiority. You call it unfair, but secretly you're relieved. Because if their success is luck, then you don't have to face the fact that they're simply willing to do things you aren't. Things like taking power without permission, speaking without fear of offense, and practicing presence until silence makes people nervous. Luck is the most comforting lie the mediocre tell each other. But what if it isn't luck? What if it's clarity? What if they just saw what you're too soft to see? You keep rehearsing, preparing, watching more videos, waiting for the confidence to arrive. It won't. Read this carefully. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a side effect of action. You think the cold, dangerous people out there felt ready? No, they made moves while doubting themselves. They stood tall while afraid. They spoke while shaking. Then the world responded, and their confidence followed. You say, but I don't want to embarrass myself. That's fine. Stay forgettable. Stay liked, but unremarkable. Stay nice and replaceable. Or say something that shakes the room, even if your voice trembles. Make the move that might fail, but will scar you into growth. Stop preparing. Start provoking. You think you need peace to transform. You're waiting for the stress to go down, the chaos to end, the pain to pass. But Machiavelli knew power is born in turbulence. He who waits for the storm to end never builds the ship. If you want clarity, you must step forward while the fire still burns. Because the pain you're in now, it isn't blocking the way. It is the way. Clarity is forged in suffering. Precision is born when everything around you is noise, and you choose to hear your own voice anyway. Don't wait to become the person who survives the storm. Start acting like the person who commands it. This is what dangerous clarity feels like. Not comforting, not soft, not motivational, but sharp, still, inescapable. You thought you needed another plan, another strategy, but you needed this, to see yourself without illusion. And now that the mirror is cracked, you get to choose. Glue it back together and pretend, or use the shards as weapons and cut your way through the lies. There's something strange that happens when you start removing illusions. People get uncomfortable, not just with you, but about themselves. Because when you stop pretending, you become a mirror. And most people don't want to see their reflection unless it flatters them. That's why clarity is so rare, and why those who possess it terrify. Machiavelli never aimed to make people feel good. He aimed to make them effective. And effectiveness begins where your favorite lies end. This won't feel motivational either, but it will leave you uncomfortable in the exact places you've been avoiding. And that's where all your untapped power is buried. You're not a deep thinker, you're just overthinking because it makes you feel intelligent. Depth is measured in action, not in how long you stare at your ceiling. And most people who call themselves deep are just afraid of being seen as simple. Machiavelli would have told you, thinking without results is self-worship. You believe your thought loops are special, that your introspection is a sign of intelligence. But if your thinking produces no clarity, solves no problem, and creates no action, it's not depth, it's mental masturbation. Real thinkers get things done. They move through uncertainty. They write, they speak, they act. They don't drown in their own spiral and call it wisdom. So if you want to keep feeling like a genius, overthink your potential for another 5 years. If you want to become one, move. You don't just want peace, you want comfort. You want peace without war. But real peace is never given, it's taken. And to take it, you must first be willing to disturb the entire room. Machiavelli would look you in the eye and say, there is no peace without the capacity for violence. And in today's world, violence isn't always physical. It's psychological. It's the sharpness of your presence, the refusal to fold, the ability to say, no, I'm not doing that. No, you don't get to talk to me like that. No, I don't need your permission. If your peace requires everyone around you to approve, behave, and praise you, it's not peace. It's fragility wrapped in soft words. Real peace is when the world can hate you and you don't flinch. It's when someone screams at you and your pulse stays steady. It's when your boundaries are crossed and you smile as you burn the bridge without looking back. That's the peace you should want. And to get there, you're going to need to destroy the part of you that still wants to be liked. Let's be brutally honest. No one owes you closure. Not your ex, not your friend, not your business partner, not your parents. The idea that someone else must deliver your healing is a trap because it keeps you waiting. It keeps you watching the door they walked out of, hoping they return with an apology, an explanation, a final message that makes your pain feel justified. Machiavelli didn't wait for closure. He rewrote the story. He understood that the strongest person is not the one who receives the answer, but the one who decides what it meant without needing permission. You want real closure? Here it is. They left. They lied. They failed. They changed. And that's all you need to know. Anything else is an emotional leash they're no longer holding. You are. Cut it and move. You're not being patient. You're being passive and calling it patience. Patience is when you know you've already done the work and now you're letting things unfold. Passivity is when you're doing nothing and pretending you're trusting the process. Machiavelli never waited for the world to deliver what he wanted. He shaped it. Because time without action is not maturity. It's avoidance dressed in spiritual language. There's a fine line between calm confidence and cowardice, and most people don't realize they've already crossed it. So be honest. Are you preparing? Or are you procrastinating? Are you trusting? Or are you avoiding risk? You don't need more time. You need more nerve. This is a lie you whisper to yourself while being used. You think your value is so undeniable that eventually, people will wake up, regret how they treated you, and come crawling back with recognition. Here's the real Machiavellian truth. If they don't see your value now, they're not supposed to. You think your worth is invisible. It's not. It's ignored. Because some people can't afford to acknowledge your strength. It would threaten their ego. And others? They simply benefit from you not knowing your own value. So stop waiting to be seen. Start acting like someone who doesn't need to be noticed. Because when you do, you'll become impossible to overlook. And those who overlooked you will have to watch you from the distance they created. Here's the truth. No one wants to say, you don't have to be healed to be powerful. You just have to stop using pain as a personality. You say, I'm still working through things. That's fine. But are you using that as a reason to stay inactive? Machiavelli didn't wait to become emotionally pure before making moves. He moved despite the mess. Healing is not a destination. It's a rhythm, a discipline, a daily decision. You think you need to be whole before you can speak with authority? Before you can build? Before you can lead? That's the lie they tell you to keep you quiet, to keep you small, to keep you invisible. Your scars are not holding you back. Your obsession with hiding them is. Motivation is nothing but a dopamine hit. You wait for it, chase it, scroll for it, and then feel empty again 2 hours later. Machiavellian clarity says, discipline is power. Motivation is bait. You think successful people are inspired every day? They're not. They just move, they act, they speak, they write, they show up, regardless of the emotional forecast. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for lightning to charge your phone. You don't need lightning. You need consistency. Stop needing to feel ready. Get used to being ready anyway. That's the mindset of killers. You're now seeing the world differently. Not because I gave you answers, but because I tore down the lies you never questioned. The illusions you clung to weren't just harmless. They were cages. Cages built from childhood, from fear, from the need to stay comfortable. But the walls are cracking now. And what comes next is either collapse or clarity. Your move. By now, you've probably felt it. Not just the sting of recognition, but the collapse of stories you didn't realize you were still telling yourself. And that collapse? It's not failure. It's rebirth. Because the difference between the average and the dangerous is simple. The average lie to themselves to survive. The dangerous look in the mirror and say, let it all burn if it means I finally see clearly. The lies here aren't just personal, they're cultural. They're the kind of illusions that entire societies protect because the truth would rip the comfort out from under them. Machiavelli wouldn't apologize for saying these things, and neither will I. They won't respect you if you're humble. They'll tolerate you, smile at you, keep you around when you're useful. But respect? That comes from power, not humility. You think being modest makes you noble. Machiavelli would say it makes you forgettable. Understand this. Modesty without leverage is just low-status branding. People don't follow you because you're soft-spoken. They follow you because you command something they don't have. That might be discipline, insight, cold detachment, but it sure as hell isn't humility. You've been taught that hiding your strength makes you more likable. Maybe it does, but what it doesn't make you is unignorable. And in this world, being liked means nothing if people don't listen when you speak. So no, don't become arrogant, but never shrink to be digestible. They don't need another nice person. They need someone who walks in the room and makes it quieter without saying a word. Maybe you can't change, or maybe you've said that line so many times you've started to believe it. Machiavelli didn't care who you were born as. He cared about what you shaped yourself into. Personality is not a prison. It's a blueprint. You don't need to destroy who you are. You need to reforge it into something lethal. You were born quiet? Good. Learn to use silence as a weapon. You were born sensitive? Good. Train it into psychological precision. You were born uncertain? Good. Now you have the humility to calculate before you strike. Stop hiding behind your nature like it's a disability. You're not a victim of personality. You're just lazy in how you've used it. You want evolution? Then burn the identity you cling to and walk out wearing the one you built. This is envy with a victim complex. You see someone with money, support, a head start, and you tell yourself you'd dominate if only you had that too. But Machiavelli would remind you, power isn't about the tools. It's about the mind using them. You think they're lucky. Maybe they are, but you're still weak for thinking that's the only reason they're ahead. You want to win? Use your disadvantage. Be sharper because you don't have a safety net. Be faster because no one's coming to save you. Be more observant because every mistake hurts. That's how dangerous minds are formed, not through privilege, but through pressure. Stop waiting for tools. Learn to be the weapon. You're right, it's not fair, and it never will be. But here's what Machiavelli understood better than most. Justice is an idea. Advantage is a reality. You keep waiting for fairness like it's a train on a schedule. It's not coming. The world is not fair. Power is not fair. Respect, influence, status, they are rigged in favor of those who play the game without emotion. So if you're still walking around expecting karma to fix things, you've already lost. Because the person who wronged you, they're not waiting for fairness. They're moving forward. While you whine, they strategize. While you cry, they close deals. While you post about boundaries, they're building empires behind your back. You want justice? Win. Nothing else counts. Sometimes if you're honest, they'll respect you. But often your honesty is just giving people ammunition. You want people to see your vulnerability and say, wow, they're so real. But most of them don't say that. They smile and remember exactly what you revealed. And when the moment's right, they'll use it to corner you. Machiavelli didn't hate honesty. He just believed in timing. Tell the truth, but only when the truth protects you. Only when it gains you leverage. Only when it intimidates them more than it reveals you. You think transparency is strength, but power comes from selective opacity. You want to be respected? Don't reveal everything. Make them wonder what you're holding back. Mystery commands more respect than confession ever will. The insult, the disrespect, the silence, the subtle exclusion. You tell yourself, it's not worth reacting. I'll just rise above. But what you're calling peace is really avoidance. Machiavelli knew, what you tolerate becomes your reputation. You don't need to explode, but you do need to signal that you noticed. Because when people learn they can cross you without consequence, they'll keep pushing. And eventually, they won't just cross you. They'll step over you. You don't always need revenge. Sometimes a glance is enough. A withdrawal of warmth. A slow, silent shift in how you respond. But if you ignore everything, they won't think you're mature. They'll think you're spineless. And no one respects the person they can quietly walk through. This is the final lie. The most seductive. The one that keeps millions mediocre. You think there's a door that will open someday. A spotlight, a stage, an invitation. You think someone will say, now is your time. They won't. Machiavelli never waited for an invitation. He took the throne while everyone else was asking for directions. No one will hand you permission. They're too busy protecting their own status to offer you space. So what do? You create the moment. You walk in like you were always meant to be there. You speak like the room was built for your voice. Not because they gave you permission, but because you stopped needing it. Clarity isn't comfort. It's confrontation with yourself. The person you thought you were, gone. The image you held onto so tightly, cracked. And now, with the lies on the floor, you're standing in the middle of something rare. A mind no longer hiding from itself. You've begun to see, and there's no going back. Clarity doesn't just mean removing illusions. It means replacing them with precision. Because once your lies collapse, you're not left with nothing. You're left with leverage. This is how you use it. To win. Replace validation with vision. You used to seek approval, likes, compliments, acceptance. You wanted proof you were good enough, strong enough, ready. But you were feeding an addiction. And like all addictions, the more you got, the more you needed. Machiavelli would say, you do not need to be seen. You need to be feared, respected, or remembered, never merely liked. The shift is simple but brutal. Before you asked, do they see me? After you ask, where am I going and who needs to move? Start building a life so sharp in purpose that praise feels irrelevant. Most people are chasing recognition. You'll be too busy becoming someone they have to recognize, whether they want to or not. Replace reactivity with calculation. You used to react. A comment, an insult, an opportunity, a betrayal, you responded immediately, emotionally. But now, every move is deliberate. You hear the insult and say nothing, but remember, you feel the disrespect and delay your response until it costs them more. You receive an offer. and sit with it long enough to detect the trap. Because now you understand, impulse is how weak men reveal their leverage. You're not cold, you're patient. You've realized the longer you wait, the more others reveal. And the person who knows the most wins. Replace overthinking with execution. Clarity isn't paralysis. Yes, you've seen the truth. Yes, you're aware of risks, angles, costs. But you no longer use that awareness as a shield for inaction. Because now you know, thinking isn't power. Acting with clarity is. You stop writing in your journal about the life you want. You stop obsessing over the perfect timing. You do. You move. You risk. Because clarity has shown you that you're not fragile. You're a weapon that was gathering dust. And now, it's time to carve your place. Replace comfort with pressure. You used to chase comfort, emotional safety, predictability, reassurance. But comfort was what kept you soft. Clarity has now taught you to choose pressure, to seek challenge. Why? Because now you know, if your life feels too stable, you're not growing, you're dying, slowly, invisibly. You begin to choose conversations that make you uncomfortable. You pursue skills that make you feel incompetent. You take risks that expose your ego to humiliation. And in doing so, you do something rare. You build psychological armor that no one can take from you. Not status, not followers, not praise, just internal steel, sharpened through chosen discomfort. Replace good person with effective person. This is the one that might sting. You used to say, I just want to be a good person. I want to do the right thing. And maybe you still do. But Machiavelli would say, the world does not reward goodness. It rewards results. Being good was your excuse to stay passive. You didn't want to manipulate, so you let others manipulate you. You didn't want to hurt people, so you let them use you. You didn't want to appear selfish, so you buried your ambition. And in the end, you weren't good. You were just powerless. Now, you start defining goodness on your terms. Maybe goodness is protecting your peace, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Maybe goodness is building power, so you can be generous from strength, not survival. Maybe goodness is knowing the game, so you're not another pawn calling himself noble. You don't stop being moral. You just stop being manipulated by morality. Replace enemies with energy. Before clarity, enemies distracted you. You obsessed over critics, fantasized about revenge. Let them control your narrative. But now, you've stopped chasing closure. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped hoping they'll one day get it. Why? Because you understand, the greatest revenge is becoming someone so powerful, they no longer matter. Enemies are just fuel now. Every betrayal is turned into a lesson. Every insult becomes a trigger to elevate. Every rejection is recycled into strategy. You no longer fight them directly. You grow past them so violently, they disappear behind you. Replace identity with reinvention. Who you were before. A version. One shaped by lies, avoidance, and assumptions. But now, you see through it. And clarity doesn't ask you to tweak that identity. It demands you leave it behind. You start saying things like, I no longer do that. That version of me is dead. This is who I am now. You stop waiting for permission to evolve. You become your own reset button. Not because you're pretending, but because clarity gave you the right to change. You were never weak. You were just fogged. By narratives, by guilt, by the illusion of virtue, and the addiction to being liked. But now, you've cut through the noise. And what's left is the one thing no one can teach or fake. A sharp mind that doesn't flinch. You were given sight. And with sight comes strategy. With strategy comes power. And with power comes the quiet, unstoppable rise. Now go, and let them wonder how you became so cold, so fast,